Hear you.
Okay, great. Thank you. So everybody, thank you. I really wish we were seeing all of you at NCMPR somewhere across the country this fall. But since we're not, what we'd like to do is share with you some things we're seeing and really begin to talk about focusing on that adult enrollment for this spring. A couple of things to remember. Traditionally, we've always had a situation where unemployment goes up, then we see community college enrollment fly up with it, and that wasn't the case yet. I still think we're going to see an increase, but what we're hearing, the national number is 9.4% down. We know of some schools that are even, that are up, and at this point, I think everyone feels if they're above 9, if they're less than 9.4% down, they're considering it a win. Just in comparison, the national number from 18 to 19 fall was 1.1% down. And so the traditional of, well, the adults are going to come running in, they haven't this year, and they haven't yet. The other thing that we saw across, where you just have some benchmarks for your own institution, we were really down in freshmen, and that was across the board, 22.7%. But also remember, many of our high school students that we were trying to get our hands on, when people talked about a gap year, for a lot of our students, it wasn't a gap year. They had to go to work and help families. And as we begin to think about that, we will start to see some of them, I believe, when some of the stresses, the economic stresses, try to mitigate some. We also saw big losses in terms of those adults, which we have been losing, to be honest, for the last couple, 3 years, because really the dual enrollment, even over the last 2 or 3 years, has kept our enrollments really up or even. Rural and urban lost a little more than suburban campuses, but we had high losses in that adult audience. If you stop and think about enrollment for a minute, I had two grandmothers, my dad's mom and my mom's mom. And when they put a meal on the table, they were very different. And so think of it in this perspective. My dad's mom could take an hour and a half, make everything from scratch, and she could put a meal on the table where the biscuits and everything else, and I grew up in the South, so black-eyed peas, all of it was just hot as you could be. Everything was well-timed, and she put that meal on. My mother's mother started at 8 o'clock in the morning and made one dish at a time. And by the time we sat down at lunch, because Sunday lunch in the South is a big deal, everything was cold, but whatever the last thing she put on. So heaven help you if she made a greasy dish at 8 o'clock because you couldn't eat it by noon. What we're talking about with enrollments is the same kind of thing. It's taking that Sunday meal and turning the fire up under one burner and lowering a burner on another market so that we can get a maximum enrollment across those markets and really putting the effort in the markets. If you think about turning the burner under it, you're going to put more fire under it to try to push it harder so we can get everything on the table at noon. Think of that analogy because that's what we're talking about. When we looked at fall enrollments, what we really did is we turned the burner up under the ones we thought we could really make the biggest hit on. And a lot of our clients had really good luck in the retention of students. That was one we turned the burner up on. The dual enrollment was a heavy focus. Now, I know some had heavy losses because some school districts, because everything going on with COVID, couldn't get their act together. And so we actually saw some schools lose dual enrollment. I think they're picking it back up though. We saw high school students that we targeted those that would have gone away. We really, if you would, turn the fire up on them. And we really hit those university students in terms of keeping them home or having their moms help keep them home. So that was really where we had priority audiences for fall 2020. One of the things we've been waiting for has been a change in search. And I know a lot of even our internal conversations here at Claris has been, well, when should we focus on those adults? In the last month or so, we've started to see, if you look at this graph, it's the Google search on colleges near me. And so you see in that very left-hand side, October 2019, you saw what the number of the bar looks like. And then you saw that March, April, May just sort of tank. Then it came up and now it's starting to tick back up a little. Also, paying for college, if you ran a straight line across it, has started to trend back up a little. And also FAFSA has started to trend back. And that's what we were waiting for in terms of, could we begin to focus on those adults because we couldn't do it till they were ready. And what made them not a focus or a priority audience for fall, we had the stimulus payments, we had unemployment benefits, job uncertainty. But today, we've got a new study out from Strata that they just did in that March-May timeframe that helps us really understand how those adults are thinking about post-COVID toward education. And using that and using Strata's major study of 340,000 adults they did in that 19 timeframe pre-COVID about non-returning adults and educational levels, we've combined all of that to say, what do we need to be saying to adults now and what they look like? I've quoted all of those studies at the back, so you have direct links to everything that I'm talking about today if you want more depth and detail. What I've done is pull out the major characteristics, and the cool part is all of the studies that we have done for clients, we have had, this matches. So we do a lot of surveys of adults. If we do a community survey for a client, a lot of what we saw and heard pre-COVID was the same that Strata has. So now we have that update on how they're thinking about it. And that's why we're looking at trying to look at them. So let's look at the adults' educational views about education post-COVID. There we go. The potential adult learner falls into these categories. It's predominantly females, 25 to 44 years old. They do not have a 2 or 4 year college degree. They've probably been in college at some point in the time, but they did not have a real positive experience overall when they were in college. They seriously consider planning or enrolling in education because they believe that is going to give them a good avenue. And that person is still out there pre and post COVID. The issue is some of the attitudes have changed. The good news is COVID has made them more likely to enroll. 42% of that adult market that was surveyed said they would be more likely to enroll now than they were previously. Only 20% said they were less likely. And you can see that 40% saying I'm neutral right now. But the big difference is the shift in what they would enroll in. And you can see in 2019, 50% said a degree, 50% said a non-degree, a credential, a certification, something quick and fast. Now we're at 68% a non-degree because right now they want the shortest possible pathway to something else. In education, credential, they want to move quickly compared to where they were previously. The other thing that is interesting is they're really less confident in the value of education today. We saw it drop from 77% nationally agreed it would be worth the cost, to only 59% agreeing with that. And in terms of additional education will make me more attractive to employers, we had 89% agreeing, and they're even doubting that. So we're going to really have to, from a messaging standpoint, begin to convince these adult learners that there is a good job waiting for them. If they'll work with us and work through us, we can actually get them to a different spot. But the big difference, 7, 8 years ago, when we started a lot of the adult learner surveys and we're talking to adult learners, it was all about, I want to do this to, say that I've accomplished something. It's about me. I want to show my children I can do this, is the reason we heard for them wanting to move forward. And then about 3, 4 years ago, we really heard more about, I want a new job, a better job, and I want to make money. Now, the latest, a third want a better quality of life, but that new job has turned more into, I just need help paying the bills right now and feeding my family. So it's a very pragmatic shift in terms of where they were from, I'm doing this for lofty reasons, if you would, to the spot of where this is a very pragmatic thing for me, and you need to show me how I can make this happen and how I can actually pay the bills and take care. The emotional consequences really helps us focus messaging. 29% feel less stressed and in control. They want to feel like a good partner or spouse. They want to feel less stressed. They want to be in control. They want to feel driven and confident. They want a sense of purpose. So as we begin to think about messaging, family, relationships, partner and spouse, all of those things we need emotionally really to think about, because this isn't just for the good of the person. Now we need to be talking about, this is good for your household, however that household looks. Take control. Because right now, everybody still feels like they really have no control. And then what they're worrying about most is having a steady paycheck or source of income, about half health and safety. We've heard if you read the verbatim comments of some of the surveys they did on this, people were very concerned about their current job wasn't taking precautions they needed to given COVID. Paying the rent or mortgage is right up there, having enough to eat. And we had the most food inequities before COVID, if you can imagine what some of our potential students are going through right now. I've never seen so many food pantries at community colleges as we've had in the last couple of years. And then that one, finding a career I loved, has actually dropped in terms of really taking care of basic needs at this point in time. The adult learners also said, and I think this is something we really need to stop and think about, because I know it's different everywhere in the country. Some of you have in-seat classes, some of you are online only. It's all over the board, all over the United States. But the adult learners need more information. When they were asked about how well they understood the skills they need to develop, only a third said, I know very well. 31% do not even understand how long it's going to take to complete a program. Only 30% said they knew well, tuition, books, other expenses, the cost. We even get less knowing about financial aid, scholarships, or loans, and about 26% saying career paths that fit my strengths. One thing to think about is when we go after these adult learners, you need a landing page that is going to absolutely address every question that they need to know to get through this, because I know in many cases, I can't just pop in anymore. And many of our adult learners were very likely to come to the institution, call the institution. So as we begin to go after them, this kind of information has to be so clear and so easy to understand right in front of them on that first contact, or I'm afraid we're not going to be able to pull them through that rest of the system as we move through. So as we look at spring, I think it's really time that we start to focus on those adults. And the key ones are the adults with some college and no degree, your stop outs, and those who've stopped out from other places, veterans with credentials and certifications, because we have some really good information from Strata about veterans needs, and the underemployed adults that may have some training, some certification or credential, because they've all experienced it. And you'll see the numbers that really want to move forward, and they will be the easiest to convince to come in, and they've had a little bit of experience with the higher educational system. So let's look at why does that keep doing that? Let's look at the adults with some college, no degree. It's really your stop outs. That's the bottom line. We have about 52% of the individuals nationally with some college and no degree that have stopped out of associate degree programs. So your own database is going to be extremely important as you begin to look through this. Most of them have attended one college, maybe two tops. If you're in North Carolina, they've probably attended three, because every time we look at a profile, they hop from community college to community college. You can see educational levels. What we're really looking at for half is 35,000 and lower, or under 60, and they're primarily full-time employed and in the workforce. The problem that we we've always had, if they're full-time employed and they're trying to come to school, that starts to create a conflict for them. Major reasons they stopped out, one was grades. They just couldn't make it work. But the big one was, I'm working full-time, I'm going to school full-time, and I just can't make this work. I think with some of the online that now everyone has gone to, that has helped. We have at least some new models in terms of hybrid models that I think some of the new ones where we're videotaping it and we're delivering it online at the same time, and I can come, gives us a lot more flexibility to work with that we didn't have, if you would, for many of you pre-COVID. The other issue is I have to make money. So I can't just completely quit and come to school. I still have to support my family. And remember, cost was a major issue for the adults when we looked at them previously. The other thing we need to think about is when we talked with the stop outs, their satisfaction with advising, career advising and academic advising, half of them rated it as fair or poor. I don't know why my screen keeps fleeking, so sorry guys. Advising, I think, is going to be a key to successful stop outs returning. And I think also online personalized advising is going to be a major key to help them understand what they have, where they need to go, and the components as they move forward. Also, likelihood of returning by type, what we found was ages 25 to 34, many of them thought they would return by their employer supporting it. I don't know what's going on. 20% said they would go to a community college, 13% a trade school, and I'm lumping in many cases my community college and trade school together, and only 9% said they were likely to return to an online institution. If you look at 35 to 49, we see the same scenario going on. Basically, if we take the employer out of the mix, because they're not going to be sending those employees to classes right now, the majority of those who are interested in returning are going to be likely to return to a community college. By ethnicity, people of color are more likely to choose a community college and choose a trade or an occupational area. So we need to keep that in mind as you look at your market mix, and especially look at the ethnicity in the market mix. Also, there's some occupations that they're going to be more likely to return. And so food prep, manufacturing, trade school, installation, repair, maintenance, healthcare, construction, transportation are areas that absolutely will help people move forward. So we need to think about people in those occupations as we begin to build the strategies to really hit those adults that have stopped out from you and are in that some college, no degree area. The other thing is the new, if you give me free community college tuition, I'll come, and courses that meet my schedule. And the reality of it is that in terms of the free community college, I was talking to a college president, and right now with the CARES information, or the CARES Act dollars, the foundation, state aid and programs, and also paying for the laptops and other things that I need, the bottom line is it really is free right now, or it can be almost free when we begin to look at the financial aid and other components. I know we don't like to use the word free, but we really need to emphasize the fact that cost really isn't a problem right now if someone really wants to return to us and move forward. So in terms of messaging to this group, part of it is that take control of today and tomorrow. And it's the same message that we really were talking about with those high school students, because right now people just feel out of control with their lives. They just are not in a situation where they feel like they have a lot of control. They want to be able to do something that shows forward movement. Another one is the family, taking care of your family, helping your family. I know in those student focus groups that we did, some of the students actually who they didn't take a gap year, they were our potential students, they had to find a job to help the family because of people being laid off. So we need to think about the impact of that on the messaging as we look at it. One of the community colleges in the country last summer used Take a Class on Us. They had a special thing that they did about helping them take one class and another, but maybe that's the way we can broach the free part without using that kind of language. Another issue is people are concerned they don't have the technology, and especially adults. That may be something we really need to talk about, because we can help provide that technology to make you successful as a part of this whole enrollment component. The other thing we need to talk about is careers now. What are the things, and we'll talk about that just a little bit in the presentation, about what do we need to focus on to get you into a different job and a better job given where you're at. And then I think also the virtual open houses, the one-on-one assistance, you can get to us even if you can't really come to campus to do that. So some strategies to think about. I found 2 services, and we'll post that in the newsletter, that actually can do updates on addresses with a 60 to 80% accuracy, up to 48 months change of address. So one of the things that we can do, we usually do the stop outs on about a year to maybe 2-year basis. With the change of address information, we can actually go back to 4 years for those in that age group who have stopped out of your institution. And that would be a terrific first start, because that broadens the list of just the ones who left a year or so ago. Also targeting key employers with adults that have some college, no degree, menial jobs. We can geofence those employers if they're back in business and they're still currently working. We can buy list of employers by industry, geofence their homes. All of it goes back again to addressable geofencing. It gives us the ability to narrow that target and really find those individuals that would be most likely to come to us, to talk to us, and to think about it. Also, we can purchase list of adults with some college and no degree. I'd like to narrow that in a lot of cases, narrow it by age, narrow it by some other kinds of parameters. And we can also do audience builder, that we can define individuals with some college and no degree, which takes a list cost out of it. It gets more difficult to do audience builder if you have more parameters to attach. And we can also take your current stop outs and develop social media custom audiences so that we can really talk to them and find them from the social media perspective. The one company found, I think it was an Alumni Finder, can actually pin social media.
Another area that we had a very interesting experience,
email addresses and other. So let's talk about veterans. I don't know what's going on in the PowerPoint today. I think it's acting a little freaky. And then I'll take questions at the end, guys. I just want to get through this for you. So in terms of veterans, we have a lot of veterans in that 25-34 and 35-49 age group. And if you look, the majority of them simply have either no certificate or degree, and we have about a third that have some kind of certificate or certification, but no degree. So we have about half of our veterans in those age groups that really are an audience for us with that no degree situation. Overall, in the survey of the veterans, 39% reported more need for education, but especially veterans of color were much more likely to say they needed more education to succeed in their career areas. The top occupations that veterans have earned credentials or certifications, you can see what those areas are. Those are the ones that we probably really need to focus on to say, I want to link this area that you may have a credential or certification to an actual associate degree, and I want to bring you through that. Or in construction, security and protective services may give me a link into the criminal justice that many of you have on that side. So think about taking where they have been. This is about half of where they have credentials and certifications, and what do we have then to move them to that next spot. In terms of messaging for the veterans, they really were concerned about making more money. And the veterans that had any kind of certification or credential on average made 10 to 15,000 more than a veteran without. They want to move up in a career. We can do the same, take a class on us, because right now we've got the ability to help you pay for it. And they do under their veterans benefits anyway. And a faster time to a degree. And I think that's a key one, because so many do have those credentials. You've got those systems in place. I know you have veterans offices that have been helping people. So I think now's the time, if you would, think about turning up the fire on the burner to really start to get the veterans to think about moving forward. In terms of strategies, what we really want to do is search your college database for veterans who attended and didn't complete. And that would be one spot to really start, because they've already been with you. Or search your college database for veterans who took certifications or credentials on your non-credit side, because that's also a group that once they've picked up that credential or certification, I want to try to bring them through my associate degree side. We can purchase lists of veterans households, ages 25 to 49, showing degree type. So that's another place that we can get our hands on, if you would, a list that we can move forward with. And there's some methods in social media doing affinity and looking at demographic targeting that we can also find veterans within each of your markets. So think about those things as really starting to look at that veteran market, because I know some of you have a ton of veterans in the market, and we've used that group for some of the career and tech programs and others very successfully. And the last big group is the underemployed and the unemployed. And what we're looking at is the interesting part of those folks is that a lot of them are still working. So COVID-19, one of the studies asked, what impact has COVID-19 has had on your current job? So about 27% of this market that's working said increased concerns about job security. About 19% says it's just going to make finding a job a lot harder. 18% said they've lost their job or been furloughed. And about 17% say they have a limited opportunity for advancement. 3 of the quotes that they shared in the study, I think, really summed it up. My partner's unlikely to find a job in their field next year, so I need a better paying job. I left my job due to a lack of safety protocols, or my hours were significantly reduced. And you know, a lot of our students are in that industry, especially the wait staff has been hit very hard. And so many of our students actually worked in those industries. The other thing that's happened from employer demand side, jobs are less plentiful. There's been a 13% decline from that March, April of 2019 to March 2020. So when we were fighting the situation of they could find a job, whether it was a good job or not, on every corner, we are not finding a job on every corner at this point in time. So one of the things that you should look at within your institutions, these were the top occupations posted for an associate degree requirement in March, April 2020. This is MC data. And so if we look at all of these program areas, these are the ones that actually people are hiring for. So these may be areas that you really want to look at doing programming in terms of defining marketing, program marketing, so that you can really begin to say, we know there's jobs here because the jobs are posted. The other thing is to look at the list of occupations for a bachelor's requirement, to look on your transfer side to say, hey, these are the kind of occupations that you can move straight through us into a bachelor's and put yourself in a completely different situation over time. You can get that start here. We can take what you've got. We can help move you through. So defining those bachelor pathways for program marketing as well. The other thing that MC does, you can actually, there's the website, you can go to MC, you can I pulled up Illinois for fun because I know we have a lot of clients in Illinois, and it will actually show you, after you find your state, the top occupations, the month over month change, and the change from last year. Even registered nurses are down, but they're not down a lot. That's still an area of high interest. The stock clerks and order fillers had a 29% change increase over the last year. So what you're looking for here is to see areas that have had the least amount of loss month over month, to say, are these some of the areas that we can talk about with our potential students in terms of moving forward from a program situation. And then MC also provides top skills sought, and you can drill down to that. But if we're starting to look at, are there some skill sets that we can get you to market faster, whether it's credit, non-credit, some of these areas actually are ones that we could look at on that particular side and keep you moving forward. And you'll see some of those, a lot of these we have, a lot of these we can really begin to talk about for that short-term work. So again, new job, better job for some of the folks that are actually working with us right now. Controlling your future, earning more money, moving up in a career. Those are some of the same messages that we had prior that we need to move forward. The whole take a class on us. And I think the faster to job for these folks is also another message as we begin to look at how do we get them to move forward. One of the things that we've done with a few of our clients, and I think everybody should go in, you should go look at that other side of the house on non-credit typically that has certification credentials, and especially the workforce ones, because they've done that first part. If you can match up those areas of interest to the credit programming, that gives you an opportunity to geofence homes and drop messages that have some program applicability. And you can basically cluster your programs while you're doing that, so you can show them a few options given an area of credential. It's going to take some work, guys, because you're starting to say, I got to slice and dice. What does project management lead to? What does truck driving? What's the opportunities for truck drivers? So you're going to have to think about it as you kick through that. I'd say in a little deeper way than we have in the past, but you have had thousands of people go through and complete. The question is, let's see if we can get their addresses. We can see if we can get current addresses on them, start with whoever's most recent and work backwards. You also need to make sure that your Google campaigns, your search campaigns, and your programmatic search campaigns are running for a lot of the programs for 24/7. We're starting to see people come back into the market with interest. And especially if you're running those program specific credit, non-credit programs that people can see a job from, start to focus on that. Also, digital ads targeting an optimized audience who's been searching for jobs in the last 30 days. If they're looking, then we need to be right on top of them, talking to them, because we're seeing that increase. And also social media custom audiences based on any of these individuals that we've been talking about as we kick through as well. So just a couple of last thoughts about spring, just some other priorities to think about with that adult focus. Continue to hit your current students, multimodal, high frequency, every kind of communication method, digital ads included. Hit them hard and continue to talk to them. I'm concerned that many of our institutions are ending around Thanksgiving. And so between the whole month of December and part of January, we really have to keep that communication going with them to push them, because we're not going to be on campus to, in a lot of cases, to give them that push to continue to move on to our next semester. If you're in a state where you have to re-enroll dual for spring, make sure you put the same kind of heat on them that you did for fall. I know in a lot we enroll for the year, so we're already set there. There is that group of high school students that didn't go anywhere. I'm not sure things are settling down for them. Let's not forget them, but we really put a lot of heavy pressure on high school students in those markets. And I think we need to remember they're there. And if they're working, we want to give them options. But that spring semester, starting sometime in spring, is when we really need to start talking to them again. And there is a group of university students who just really were not happy. When they get back for Thanksgiving, your normal Thanksgiving campaign, just to remind them you're still there. We still need to make sure that we stay in front of them, but not the kind of heat that we put on them for the fall semester. And then also any of those applicants from spring and fall who didn't complete, who didn't get through, maybe even backing up to fall 19, keep them in your mix as you move forward, because they had some interest. Now, we know COVID happened in addition to life, so we've got two things that have really stopped people from moving forward with their information. So I think I did that fairly quickly for me. I'll take questions. If you could chat them to Amy, might be the easiest way. And then here are the sources for all of those reports that you can simply download from the back. Amy, do we have any questions?
Yes, we did get one question on if they will receive the slides following the webinar, how they access those slides.
You can download it off the website, so you'll have everything. Any other questions, guys? Okay.
It was just a thank you. Sorry, not another question.
Okay, great. If you do have any questions, we appreciate it. And thank you, guys. I hope you picked up at least one thing to move forward with. So anything else, Amy?
No more questions are coming in, it looks like.
Okay, great. Thank you, guys. We appreciate it. If you need anything from us, contact one of your managers. We hope you be safe and healthy.